Welcome to the Coastal Business Channel. This is Laura. Today we're going to talk about things you can do to help you learn faster. So there are definitely things on this list that I've incorporated throughout the years because I actually knew it was what I needed to do to learn. And sometimes you're going to figure out what works for you. You don't necessarily need me to tell you. But here's a list that you can go off of and see what works for you. Say out loud what you want to learn. I do that with people's names, and that was a trick. I'm sure it's everywhere. You know, hi, I'm Laura, what's your name? And they say Jane. And then I go on, do my thing, and then I come back, I'm like, fuck, what the fuck's her name? But so now I'm like, oh, hey, Jane, hi, really nice to meet you. And sometimes I still forget, but at least it's a way. If you say things out loud, it really helps you. Or sometimes I walk to the grocery store, butter, 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 butter. By the time I get to the butter, I'll remember. Usually somewhere along the way, I stop saying butter. And then I get to the dairy section and I'm staring around. I'm like, oh my God, what did I need? And then I'll be like, oh yeah, butter. So say out loud what it is you need to learn. This one I do, take notes by hand. I am trying so hard to get my 15-year-old to do this. The freaking history book is on the computer and you can do find and search and find what you're looking for and he can answer all the stupid questions. Now, again, when he answers them, he does have to write them down. But the fact that he can just search for it. So I'm like, no, you have to use the textbook and you need to take notes. And anything that's bold, I want you to take note, whether it's on your teacher sheet or not. It's going to help you learn and remember things. So taking notes by hand is a big one. This is what I'm doing. My daughter's being homeschooled right now, and that's been addressed in other videos, so I won't bore you with that. But we do math every day in 30-minute chunks. And I think it's better to do it in 30-minute chunks than us to do it in an hour. Or, oh, we skipped that day, we'll just do 2 hours the next. 30-minute chunks. Jesus. Chunks. And that way I feel like she's learning it better, doing smaller chunks over time. And she's also doing that. It was really good. Her Mandarin tutor, I was like, oh, 1 hour once a week. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it twice a week for 30 minutes each. And then she gives Anna homework. And that's been working out really well. So don't do huge study blocks. And sometimes I'll tell my son, like, work for an hour, go play some basketball and come back and work for an hour. Like, it's much easier. And also he's so high energy, trying to get him to sit still for 2 hours is like a nightmare. I do that with my work sometimes. When I have a lot I want to do, I will do an hour and then I'll start laundry and then I'll come back and do another hour rather than trying to do such huge, large chunks of time. This one was interesting. It's like change the way you practice. And it really had to do with sports and for learning for sports, but it can be for anything. So if you have to memorize a poem and you're reading that poem, so you're reading that poem out and you do that a few times, they say like the better thing to do then is start to read it faster. Right? And just read it faster in a faster cadence and then take a break and then read it slower. And then when you go back to read it normally, it's actually you learn faster. So for example, if I'm going to take shooting basketball, you're doing your layup and you dribble twice and you do your layup. Well, now run and do it. And then they say, and then go back and do it a little slower. And then when you get back to doing it like regular speed, your muscles have learned it much faster because you've learned it in different muscle rhythms. Anyway, that's a study from Johns Hopkins says to do it that way. So give that a try. The next one is, this is interesting because I just started doing it again, but exercise regularly. Exercising regularly and getting your blood flowing improves your memory. That's been proven scientifically. So if you have big tests coming up, if it's midterms, if you can just go out and run for 15 minutes every morning, that's going to help the blood flow and that's going to help you remember. And it's going to be better than studying for those 15 minutes. Or maybe you can take a break in the middle of the day. When I was in college, I would go running at 1 o'clock. So that seems weird because I'm like, did I have lunch and then go running? Who knows when I ate? But I would go running around 1 o'clock every day, and it kind of helped me get going for the afternoon. So exercise regularly, it helps improve the blood flow and your memory. Sleep more. I do that. I sleep 8-9 hours a day. I really need 8.5 hours a day to sleep. I've always been that way. And my memory has always been really good. I believe, and I've been told by others that my memory is much better than the average person. And such as someone will be talking and I'll be like, oh, how is so-and-so? And they're like, oh my God, how did you remember that? And it was like, I don't know. I just did. But I'm rarely sleep deprived. There are times when I will only sleep about 5 or 6 hours just because I'm old. But that's once every 2 months. I have a really hard time sleeping. Otherwise, I've been a good sleeper. and I continue to be. I guess I'm not when I drink too much caffeine or I have coffee at night, which is just stupid. But I'm stupid sometimes, so I'll have coffee at 8 o'clock and be like, I don't know why I can't sleep. So just, yeah, don't be stupid. But try to sleep regularly. Now, I know I need more than the average. Maybe you only need 7 hours. I've heard the typical adult only needs 7 hours. That's never been my case. Even when the triplets were little, I was more likely to go to bed at 8 with them. In fact, I remember times when I worked on the trading floor and I would go out partying Saturday night, and on Friday, like 7:30, I would be asleep. And there was just like nothing I could do. My body was like, we're done, we're sleeping, too bad. So keep track of how much sleep you need and try to sleep more regularly. If you have a big event coming up, if you have a big exam, or it's an important semester in school, try to make sure that sleep is right. You're going to learn more in 4 hours when you're well rested than 5 hours not being well rested. So make sure you do that. The other one is interesting that I was suggesting to my son for no other reason than I thought it'd be less boring, but there's scientific proof behind it, is learn more than one subject at a time. So he has a lot going on with history, but he also has an Algebra 2 exam coming up. So I said, hey, why don't you read history for 10 minutes and then work on math and do 2 or 3 math problems and then go back to history and then take a break. Whichever one is, history to me is more time consuming than math because you got to read a bunch of crap. Read a bunch of very interesting material. I love math. Sorry. Math is great. And then it's teach someone else. So we actually have our 15-year-old teaching one of our 13-year-old boys algebra. And it's really interesting because it's really helping his algebra skills. Because if he doesn't fully understand it, he can't teach it. But also it's exposing him to material that is actually tested big time on the SAT. And you need it for Algebra 2 as well. But by teaching his younger brother, he is able to kind of get that information so solid into his own memory. And that's something that's good. I used to, and this is coming up and it's the next one. Actually, it's not the next one. It's going to be on the other page. But I used to make myself tests, and I would make myself teach myself the material. And I did that all through college, and I did fabulous on the economic classes. I love those graphs. I see visually. I could picture them in my head. I remember being able to tell the teacher what page number. Oh, that's on 251, and everyone turn around and look at me, and I'm like, loser. But that's okay. It's okay. I've done well in life when I've learned things really well, and I feel like I can teach it back to you. And someday I'd love to do videos on economics. My son's taking economics next year, so maybe I could do that this summer. I could get an economics book and then start doing tutorials on economics, AP economics. That'd be pretty cool. I love it. And then he could watch it. Oh, and then he could tell all his friends, and then he'd really hate me. But we'll go back to this. So things that you can do to learn. So the one I was just saying, so one is teach someone else, but the other is I would make tests for myself and quizzes for myself and make myself write it. And I had this one professor, I think he was my first economics professor, and he said, the less words, the better. I want 3 bullet points underneath each graph and tell me the 3 most important things, right? Supply, demand, quantity, price, and if there's any dead weight loss. And I just remember kind of going through that, and I just knew. I took his final exam, I want to say 15 minutes, but I'll just say 20 minutes. It was a 2-hour exam. And I walked out of there and I'm like, got it. And everyone else is like, oh my God, she failed. I think she failed. No, I got the highest grade in class. I was so excited when we went back to get him because I know I did. I knew that stuff cold. I didn't even have to think. It was like autopilot. I knew it. And so that's an extreme. I think I did definitely take. I loved him. I loved him as a professor. And then he went to Minneapolis or Minnesota or someplace out west. And I was very upset because it was my freshman year I had him, and I wanted to take more classes with him. He was a really nice man. But so I wanted to impress him. So I overstudied. But there's a way to do that. But I think, testing yourself, going over the material again, you're going to be able to get to it, have that information down cold. And the very last one is, build upon what you know. And that's what's exciting for me. So next year, my son will get to take AP Economics in high school. Well, okay, we're hoping he'll be able to, he's registering for it, AP Economics in high school. But then he can take microeconomics and macroeconomics his junior and senior year. And that way he's building upon the information that he already knows. And that's going to be fantastic. He's going to leave high school with such a solid foundation of economics. And I'm really excited because I want him to take over my business someday. He might not want to, and that's fine. But so those are things to do. So to me, the big ones that were on this list that I use is definitely handwrite notes. The act of actually writing helps you remember. Sometimes saying things out loud. My grocery store examples aren't necessarily, I'm not drawing it upon my study skills. And I definitely, when I was in college, I didn't say things out loud because I was in a library or my dorm room with another, but I did write notes. I did give myself tests and make myself do the test. And I would grade it as if I was like a friend. I would be sitting there like, oh, that could be right. Because you want to see like, what could he possibly find fault or she find fault with the work that I've done. So those are my study skills. Those are the big ones. So good luck studying. If you have any comments, please leave them. If you have any information that you want to pass on to me, please leave a comment. I'd be more than happy to get back in touch with you. Thank you.